Hello, it's a solo episode today, just me. I've got Teddy with me actually, so solo and a half. He's probably going to bark at a really bad moment, aren't you, Ted? It's my daughter's cockapoo. I'm solo because Phil is ill. Oh, he's just come back from holiday. He's about to go on holiday, but the in-between, he does quite often get ill. So he's really poorly at the moment. He's lost his voice. He's looking very sorry for himself. So I said, well, don't worry, I'll do this one on my own. And hopefully in a few days when we do the next one, he'll be well again. But who knows? So in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to keep your team motivated and in brackets and you during times where the market is flat. Now, it's a funny old market at the moment. The more I speak to agents, and we do speak to many, many agents across the country, the more I'm hearing completely different reports. And I said this in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, where I said it's probably the most fragmented market I've ever known. But trying to pick up the theme and the sort of the trends across the country, this is what I think. I believe, I have no basis in fact, by the way, only anecdotal conversations, that the discretionary purchase and sale areas are flat and the areas that are what I would call compulsory move areas are not flat. Now, let me just explain that. When I say compulsory, those people who are in chains where they're upsizing, downsizing, they're buying something, they're selling something, they've got a purpose for the sale and the purchase, and they've usually got some kind of timeline or deadline in their minds. That is most areas in the UK, isn't it? 95% of areas. Particularly, I would say probably urban areas, except for, investment properties. In areas like mine, the Lake District, we have a discretionary area. You don't have to buy a £1 million home as a second home. There's no compulsion, there's no urgency, there's no scarcity even, especially not at the moment. There's just a general feeling that that's what you've always wanted to do. And the challenge with that is with so much stock at the moment, if that purchase gets drawn out too long, they get shiny new property syndrome and they go, actually, is this the best I can get or should I get this instead? We had somebody pull out, and I'm sure you all have had this many, many times in your careers, but the day of exchange, we've had a withdrawal or a fall through. And that is heartbreaking for everybody concerned. So I think that if I could describe our market, it's that if you don't have to move, you don't move. And that's mainly for purchases, not for sales, because the sales market, our sellers haven't caught up with that thought. So they're still putting their properties on the market willy-nilly, not being aware that there's a bit of a backlog building up with properties on the market. And then that's resulting in too much choice, and that's resulting in withdrawals and fall throughs. Does that make sense? And with that theory in my mind, I talked to a lovely agent today who, and I'm not going to say exactly where they are, but let's just say they're in another area of the country that mirrors ours in terms of not necessarily property values, but certainly the types of properties we have. Lots of second homes, lots of holiday lets, lots of discretionary purchases. And he was saying that he's got a lot of offices, more than 10, and his pipeline is lower than it's been since 2022. And their stock is 24% up. So you can see that because their market mirrors ours, we're having the same kind of issues. Now, he's not particularly concerned. He's been in this business a long time, as have I. And that we know that there's always a better market around the corner. And after every better market, there's always a worse market around the corner, isn't there? But we've had this bear market for quite a while now. And it's wearing Phil down, I know. But also, importantly, it's wearing our staff down a little bit, our lovely team. And that's not nice, is it? When we feel that if we come in flat and then they're flat, it feels like a grind and not a pleasure to run our businesses. So I offered something recently called the Market Response Plan, Summer 2025. I'm not going to say it's out of date, even though I'm recording this in September. It's definitely still as valid now. So if you haven't already got that, we'll make sure we put the link to it in the show notes. But over 200 of you have downloaded that report and used it. And the reason that I was on the phone to this gentleman today, let's call him Martin, That's not his name. It's close enough. He downloaded the plan, and then he immediately changed what he was going to report to the board on and suggest as a game plan for keeping his team on board and make sure that we stay calm through these choppy waters. So this isn't relevant to everybody. It may not be relevant to you if you don't have a team, and it won't be relevant to you if you are not in a flat market. But for those of you who are listening who are a little bit concerned about the market, it's not where you want it to be. You're getting either lots of fall throughs, withdrawals, just chains collapsing, and or no viewings or offers on key properties, even though they're beautiful properties and well priced. Then this is for you, because this episode is all about making sure that we're using carrots and sticks, both ends of our tools as leaders, to make sure that our team feel supported, motivated, enthused and happy in their jobs. So I'm going to read you a little bit that is from the market response plan to give you a bit of a kind of idea about what's in there, and then you can make a decision about whether you'd like to download it or not. And if you have downloaded it and not read it, which is probably a lot of you, the over 200 of you, then this will be a little bit of a way of helping you to understand why it's important to go and read it. So this is a section called Keeping Team Members Reassured. It's not just clients who get nervous. Your team needs reassurance too. When the phone stops ringing, it can feel like you're failing. They need to hear from you that this is a phase, not a crisis. Give them structure, purpose, and the belief that their effort right now will pay off in the months to come. Hold regular check-ins, share the wins, however small. Don't let low morale creep in. And when someone books a valuation or wins an instruction, shout about it. Encourage team members to share what's working to build a sense of shared progress. So we call this Operation Calm Waters. And we've got 3 sections of Operation Calm Waters. And while the first one is all about clients, the second and the third are about culture, quality, systems, team retention and onboarding. So let's just go through a few of the things that we're doing here at Ashdown Jones, but also my lovely friend Martin is also doing with his multi-branch agency. And we swapped notes, and I've stolen from him, and hopefully he can steal from me, in order to just make sure that we're all doing the best we can possibly do and keeping best practice front and centre. So some of the things that he's doing that we're not doing. So we talked about carrots and sticks. Let me just quickly explain that before I move on. He told me a little story which I thought was very enlightening, and they'd got a trainer in, an external trainer, to do a training session with probably about a third of their team, so maybe about 30 or 40 people, and they were all in one room. And this lady was ex-police, and she came in. She said, okay, on my right, that side of the room is 10 out of 10, motivated, committed, loyal, enthused, doing the best you can possibly do in your job. Over there is 1 out of 10, a little bit deflated, not particularly motivated, just doing just enough to scrape by, maybe not even always that. I want you to go and stand where you think on that scale where you are right now. So be really honest with yourself. Now, as you might imagine, pretty much everybody congregated around the 7, because 7 feels safe, doesn't it? It's a safe, neutral, can't blame me kind of place. But then this lady then challenged them and said, really? Are you really a 7? Please just be honest, be self-aware, and put yourself where you truly are. And a couple of people moved up, but most people moved down. And one particular lady moved all the way down to a 3. Now, this lady had been, let's call her Julie. She'd been with the company for 25 years. And when the trainer said, Julie, tell me about your 3 out of 10, Julie said something really interesting. She said, look, I'm being really honest here. I definitely could do better. The reason I'm not doing any more than 3 is because there are no consequences. And me and Martin discussed this at length, because that is a really interesting idea. I think that the style of leadership has moved from that kind of 1980s target-led, very masculine energy, very, you're in or you're out, pass, fail. We're all about the successes, the monetary successes, the targets, the KPIs, etc. We've moved from that into something that is much more soft and cuddly, where we're using our soft skills so much more. This is the woke era. This is the era where we don't like telling people that they need to wear a tie, which Martin and I discussed, because his male members of his team do have to wear a tie. It's one of the things that they're proud of in their grooming guidelines. It means that when they don't wear a tie, are they pulled up on it? It means that when they want a duvet day, they're given one. When they mention anything to do with not feeling great about themselves, self-esteem, not even mentioning the words mental health, then they're immediately granted days or weeks off. And I'm not saying that either of those two poles are correct, and that neither of them really are sustainable in their own way, are they? You know, if you gave everybody a duvet day at their own discretion, you might not have any staff when you walk in tomorrow. But if you start coming in and doing the Gordon Gecko, then maybe you won't have staff then either. So to me, it's a balance of carrots and sticks. And what I was explaining to Martin was, we do have consequences for what I would call poorly chosen behaviour. So the reason that this came up at all was because Martin was telling me that they've recently pitched for a big contract and lost it on the basis of a mystery shop. So the developer mystery shopped Martin's company, and unfortunately the result was sadly lacking. And Martin was incredibly frustrated and upset about it, as you can imagine, and wasn't sure about how to address this in this, you know, woke kindness kind of culture. And also he has got a very kind culture in his company. And I said, we do have something, and I forget the name of it. I will get the name of it and make sure it goes in the show notes. And if you'd like one of these forms, then you're very welcome to ask me for one. And it's called something like the impact report. And the premise of it is this: if a team member makes a mistake, and it's a genuine mistake. In fact, I had this with one of our mastermind clients the other day, whose team member ordered a new car as agreed, forgot to cancel the old one, and ended up with a £400 overlap. And he said, again, what should I do? Is that a rap on the knuckles? Is it sacking? Is it a verbal warning, a written warning? And I said, actually, I think it's an impact report. Because if you go through the impact report, then the point of it is that team member needs to understand the impact of their behaviour, of their mistake, their error, their carelessness, their forgetfulness. And by understanding the impact, it's actually going to have a greater impact on their future behaviour. Because if you just wrap the knuckles, then they're going to feel a little bit annoyed probably. They probably won't feel particularly humble about it or even sorry about it, especially if you've gone in with anger, which you absolutely are entitled to do. If the end result is you want the person to stay and be a better team member and have better choices, make better decisions, then an impact report, I think, is the right way to go. So an impact report will look at the impact of their error on things like the rest of the team members, on themselves, their own career development maybe. Obviously be careful there. It needs to not sound like it's too heavy a warning. But also on the company's finances, the company's well-being, the company's financial health, and also the directors and how they're going to feel about that particular error. And it really just helps that person explore all the ways that their error has impacted. Now, I wouldn't do this for a little error, like, for example, I don't know, agreeing to wash up and then forgetting before they left. That's not that kind of error. We've had somebody recently leave and give notice whilst on holiday, in which case the holiday was the notice, which severely impacted the team, was really, really not fair. And if that person had come back, that's what we would have done. We would have taken them through an impact report. Obviously, it's after the fact because they were leaving. But those kind of decisions that are very self-centered, very selfish decisions, can really affect the team. And one of the things that this particular lady was doing, and as I say, she's left now, she, one particular day, and I think that a team member overheard her and then told us about it, the phone started ringing at, 2 minutes past 5. And she said, well, you needn't think I'm going to answer that. I'm going. I finish at 5, that kind of attitude. And that's not a nice thing to do. And if one of us had heard it, and we hadn't just been able to report it as a sort of third party, we could have then conducted an impact report with her and gone over exactly what that behaviour meant, why it would affect the other team members, and what we were going to do about it. And that might be on some kind of report. Remember at school when you get put on report? Remember those days? Maybe you never got put on report. Maybe you were really well behaved. I don't think we had reports in my day, but we had just had lots of detentions and lines. I don't seem to do lines anymore. But my son got put on report quite a bit. And it's just like an extra accountability, whether that's daily, weekly. It's a check-in, isn't it, to make sure the behaviour's being held to the highest standard. And I think that is perfectly valid to introduce into your company if mistakes are going to be made, which obviously they're going to be. Now, if that person comes to you full of remorse and regret, upset, they've made the mistake, they've owned up to it, they've tried to rectify it, they're not going to do it again, maybe you don't need to do an impact report. But those people who go, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Those are the people who need the impact report more than ever, or impact session. But once I remember the name of it, it will go in the show notes and you can get access to it yourself. So that is what I would call a stick, because it's a consequence. Let's now look at carrots to balance those consequences. So some of the things that Martin is doing with his company, I really liked, and I thought we could definitely harness some of that in our company, even though we've got a much smaller team than him, about a tenth of the team members, and maybe you're listening to this with no team members or just one team member. But I think that they're all still valid, whatever size company you have. So one of the things he suggested that they used really well was a well done card. And what he gets his branch managers to do is to let him know when somebody has gone above and beyond and done something that isn't part of maybe their job remit, or has just done something very, very well. The branch manager then reports back to the directors, and the director would then send from head office a well done card, which was signed by that particular director. And it says in the card, your efforts are very much appreciated. And it's just a really nice thank you card, because not everybody needs or wants a monetary thank you. Often a verbal or a written thank you is more impactful than a monetary value. I'd probably like to see maybe a Costa voucher or something in there, or a voucher for local brownies, something nice like that. But it's not necessary. I think that the thank you card is the most important part of that activity. Then he's got something called the 100 Club, which I was really fascinated by. I think this is a really lovely idea. And he's got over 10 offices, as I say. And if one of those offices does more than £100,000 a year in profit, they get allocated to the 100 Club. And then the people that are in the 100 Club, those branches, all those team members then get taken out for a nice meal. I'm not sure if that's as a head office, but I think it's more as a branch. So I think the branch get allocated a budget to go out for a nice meal together, which I thought was a really nice idea. And something I've not heard of is what Martin called his wellness scheme. And he couldn't remember the name of the company that provided it, but if you're listening to this and you know of a company like this, please let us know and then we can pop it in the show notes. And the wellness scheme is he allocates a budget per year to each staff member, and each staff member get, for their staff and the spouse, a 24/7 phone line, which is holistic support. That could be something like mental health issues, it could be financial issues, it probably could be HR issues, or even health issues. And then they get, on top of that, 4 times face-to-face meetings per year if they need them. And then every month they get an anonymised report as a company that says 3 people use this service, 5 people use this service this month, so they can at least see that it is being utilised. And in a recent review, where Martin sat down with a team member that wasn't particularly happy and wasn't performing very well, he was able to direct him to this wellness scheme because this person didn't want to tell Martin what the issue was in his personal life. And I thought that was really good. I really liked the idea of having some kind of wellness scheme. I've heard of many companies that offer health club membership, or private healthcare, or gym membership, or some kind of incentive like that. And I think that they're really nice things to have, because really we want a healthy and happy team, healthy in every way that somebody could be healthy. So let's look at some of the other things that I suggested to him that he does, that we do, that's kind of probably in between the carrots and the sticks. And this is to make sure that we keep people on a course that is for the benefit of them and their performance, and also for the company, and also, of course, for their team. So one of the things that we do, and I'm sure you know if you've been listening to the pod for any length of time, is monthly reviews. We don't call them reviews, we call them PAD sessions, which stands for Performance and Development Sessions. We also have something called a STAR folder, which stands for Successes, Trainings and Achievements Record. And what goes in the STAR folder is all their PAD sessions and any other training and development that they do, plus things like the grooming guidelines and any terms and conditions. That all goes in the STAR folder as well. So it's a big chunky binder that stays with that person for the longevity of their career with us. And that means it's one place to put all the information. So interestingly, when we do an action report, so it's a written document, that wouldn't then go in their STAR folder, because the STAR folders are on the side for everybody to see. And although I'm sure other team members wouldn't look through it, the idea that it's not confidential doesn't sit well with me, and I'm sure not the team members. So that goes in a private locked personnel file. They can have a copy for themselves to take home and put in their own place at home if they so wish as well. But most things that aren't confidential go in this STAR folder. So what I suggested to him in the PAD session was every team member gets assessed for their attitude to self-development throughout the year. We assess it monthly and quarterly and annually. And one of the items in the self-development checklist is, have you been booking your PAD sessions in? So at the end of a year, they've got to have had 12 PAD sessions, but that is their responsibility to put in the diary, not ours. And they can't just put in 2 within like a week of each other, like the end of September and beginning of October. They've got to have clear time between them with 12 in total. Now that changes the game a little bit, doesn't it? Because rather than you saying to them, right, this is when your next PAD session is, they're saying that to you. And that way, they're kind of taking control and ownership of their personal development. In every PAD session, and again, if you want one of these, I can send it out to you. Just send me an email, sam@ajmastermind.co.uk. Every one of these sessions is recorded with what's happening right now, how's the last month been, how's what are your targets for the future month, what was your actions from last month, have you done those actions, what's your actions for next month, and then we RAG rate them, red, amber, green, based on 6 different items in the in the form, including, as I say, attitude to self-development. So the very fact we're doing a PAD session that's been put in the diary by them means that their self-development is going to be higher. If I've had to chase them for a PAD session and I'm sitting there going, well, you've only had 3 PAD sessions this year and we're on July, then that isn't going to bode well for their personal development. So that is a way of making sure that they own that process and that they embrace it and that they use it for their own benefit, not just for the benefit of the company. So as well as PAD sessions and impact sessions, we also have something called an echo session. I wish for the life of me I could remember what it stood for. Edward, I'm sure you're listening to this cringing. It's something about communication. Is it efficient communication? I can't remember what it is. But what it does is it takes the last 3 phone calls that have been recorded through Rightmove. We give them advance warning of this, and 3 emails, which I think we choose, and we sit down and we discuss exactly how those 6 pieces of communication went and what we can do to improve them. And people either get an accelerated version of that if we don't feel like the communication is particularly good and it needs addressing, or they get to just do that once every 3 to 6 months just to make sure that they've got a refresher and that they're operating at the highest level. And it means that people don't get sloppy on the phone, they don't get sloppy through email. And that's one of the things that Martin and I talked about how we make sure that people are always acting at the best possible self on the phone, because you never know who's going to be on the other end of the phone. It could be the owner of a £10 million house. It could be a tenant complaining about a dripping tap. If you treated them all like the tenant with a dripping tap, then you're missing the opportunity. Even if we get a sales call, I encourage our team to make sure that they're applying themselves at the best possible level to still be friendly, interested, polite, professional, to still make sure that we put down the phone after they do, and just to practice their telephone skills on whoever it is that phones. So that's the PAD sessions and the echo review and the what was the thing I said, the impact report as well. And I think what that does, I also should speak to training as well. So we have training every single week in Ashton Jones. every Tuesday after the team meeting, or as part of the team meeting, we have a training session that goes anything from 15 minutes to an hour. This week we've had a refresher on positive behaviours and teamwork, which actually I don't feel like we need, but it does help to keep the culture up. We've got a really, really solid team at the moment, and I feel really good about the team, and they're clearly working really well together as a team. But two of the team members are quite new, and it's important to keep reinforcing that. So that's what Edward calls essential training. Edward, if you didn't know, is our ops manager, and he sets out all the training. So he tells me what training needs doing, or if I see something that I feel needs addressing, even if it's just a spelling test, then I'll jump in. It might be a lack of negotiation skills in a particular situation. It could be a difficult conversation training. It could be training in, conveyancing, or it could be in sale progression, what that actually means. Or it could be technical training. We've had people come in and talk about, we've got an architect coming in soon, talk about what an architect does and how to recommend him. We've also had septic tank specialists come in. They were a bit smelly. And they came in to talk about exactly what the septic tank legislation is. And so it's just really good, I think, to make sure that we've got constant training going into the team, and that we're showing that we value them and that we value training and self-development. So that happens every single week. So in their star folders goes the formal training, which is the set essential training, and also the ad hoc training, which might be a mystery shop, for example. So there's a lot there to unpack, but if you're not doing any of those things, then start with just the monthly reviews. If you feel like you've got somebody who needs extra help, give them fortnightly reviews, and if they need even more help, then weekly reviews. And they should be doing most of the talking in that review, not you. It's not you reviewing them, it's them reviewing themselves and how they feel about that job at the moment. And that's not being woke, that's actually just good practice, that a review should be them telling you what's going on, not you telling them, because you already know what's happening from your point of view. What you don't know is what's happening from their point of view. So use the information that they give you to be able to guide how you then progress that team member, or not. Maybe you've come to the end of your journey together. You won't know that until you actually do those kind of sessions with them. In terms of who does those sessions, if you've got a big enough team, then their line manager should do them, and then I step in about every 3 or 6 months just to make sure that they're getting a director-led PAD session. And then we also do all our senior team ourselves, me and or Phil. So I think that's all the things I wanted to talk to you about how to keep your staff motivated when the market is flat, how to use carrots and sticks. I think I've mentioned a couple of our carrots recently. We've got some unconditional things like our team holiday, which we're going on in a few weeks, where we're all going off to Northumberland in a lovely Airbnb. We've been on cruises before. We allocate a certain amount of money per year and also per month, so we can do meetups. We've done things like go-karting, meals out. We're doing a treasure hunt week after next with a meal out at the end of that. We've done Team Sports Day, which was super fun. We've done, what else? We've done bouldering, pottery painting, all kinds of things, segwaying. So every month we do something, and it's one of Jenna's KPIs or key performance indicators to make sure that she is, that we have 12 things over the course of the year, plus or minus the team holiday. So there are carrots. We also have spoken as well about the fact that we were aiming for £1 million turnover, and then we would take all the team to New York. Because the market has literally imploded here, we've put that on hold from June, and we're going to do another 6 months next year when the market picks up, because it's not their fault. They're doing everything that they can do. It's not our team's fault that the market has imploded. So we're going to put that on hold until the market recovers, and then give them the best possible chance to get the other 6 months, because we were very nearly on track in those first 6 months, and then it's all gone a bit awry. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, our area is the same as yours and I need a market response plan, then the link will be in the show notes. If you're thinking, well, the market's going pretty well, but I want to look after my team more, then do ask me for any of the forms that I mentioned in this podcast. So just send me an email, sam@ajmastermind.co.uk. Or if, like me and Martin this morning, you'd like just a chat about the market, your team, your direct mail, your lead generation, your vendors, your buyers, whatever it is that's on your mind right now that is not going well, that you'd like some help with, I'm always very happy to just chat to you for free with absolutely no strings. I probably have 4 or 5 of these every single week. They take about 45 minutes. Sometimes they result in us working together. Quite often they don't. And I'm absolutely relaxed about that. This Martin that I spoke to this morning, I've not seen him. We've not seen each other for 15 years. So it was actually really nice just to catch up. And if you're listening to this and you think, it's a while since I've seen Sam, like on the speaking circuit or a conference or in any of the other places that we might have met in the past, and we haven't had a catch up recently, I would absolutely love that. It really helps me as well to know what other markets are doing across the country, but also even more important, what you're doing. What's the best practices that we can borrow from you and that you can borrow from us? And it's always going to be a really interesting conversation, hopefully for both parties. So I would love to speak to you. So use the book a call invitation in this podcast and get that booked in. And whatever you're doing today, I hope you're staying dry because it is very, very wet here. But I think, we're in for a wet autumn, aren't we? So have fun, whatever you're doing, and I will see you on the next podcast episode.